Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I hope that you're doing absolutely wonderful. I am doing wonderful and I appreciate you asking. Got a couple of things I want to cover as quickly as possible. And then as promised, we were going to concentrate on a little more charting and some very obscure patterns that the novice traders might be missing. So you guys don't go anywhere.
If you're ever walking down the beach and you see a girl dressed in a bikini made out of seashells and you pick her up and hold her to your ear, you can hear her scream. I thought I'd hear the ocean, but not over that woman.
Money, 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 money. I'm rolling in the money, 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 money. I get that fast money in a. I get that fast money in a. Money, 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 money. I'm rolling in.
This is going to be a relatively quick one. I only got a couple of stories to run by you. Wasn't going to do anything until a stream on the 4th of July, but I figured I got enough to do a little video here, so we'll go ahead and jump on into it pretty quickly. Now, as everybody is aware, Bill Cosby was released from prison yesterday. Mixed emotions on both sides, and I understand the emotions on either side, and this ain't a he's guilty or he's innocent conversation. Dude came out and admitted the things that he had done. I do feel sorry for the young women and the families of those young women who got to feel all kinds of violated today. However, the way that our justice system is set up is that 10 guilty people will walk free before one innocent person is incarcerated. So I hate it for those young ladies and their families, but it was a travesty to the legal system as it is written. However, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about. That's not what I wanted to talk to you about. One of these things, make sure you follow me over on Twitter at ScottyP1063. Because Kinsey and I were the first ones talking about this yesterday. Evidently, I'm not the first YouTube video because somebody did one on this morning, but we were kicking it around yesterday. And right before he went into prison, he purchased about 750 Bitcoin. The idea, the concept was to try to hide it or protect it. Bad crooks try to use Bitcoin to hide money. But anyway, the first thing that crossed my mind when Kinsey told me that he'd been released from prison was this, though. And so I went back and found the article and found the time range in which he had to have bought it. So he bought it anywhere from $6,500 to $7,500. Spent about $5 million on it. That same 750 Bitcoin as of yesterday is worth a little over 26 million. So the cause teaches us to hodl. To hodl. Oh my goodness, that guy falls bass backwards in the money. My goodness gracious. Now, there were some interesting goings on yesterday up in Congress. There were some hearings. Some of the same old bad players. And it also looks like we've got some players that are on our side for a change, which is nice. However, I'll go ahead and set this up. We'll go ahead and set it up first with our idiot representative from California, Brad Sherman. And any of you California crypto guys, you need to vote this guy out. You need to vote this guy out. But again, there were a couple of new people on the scene that I hadn't heard of before, so I'll just share a couple of clips with you.
Those in the cryptocurrency space are naturally pro-crypto. Their fortunes, their relevance, their fame depends upon the success of cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is something you can bet on. But if people want to have the animal spirits to take risks, I'd prefer them invest in equity markets to support the building of American companies, or the California lottery to support the schools in my state. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile. So if one person makes $1 million and retires at age 45 and 9 lose $100,000, Coinbase makes money. The one millionaire goes on TV and says how wonderful it is. And 9 others do not retire in dignity, but instead become eligible for Medicaid. Cryptocurrencies can ultimately be successful only if they're successful currencies. And evading the know your customer rule is the one thing that cryptocurrencies have as an advantage to the US dollar. Cryptocurrencies have the political support of the patriotic anarchists who are rooting for tax evasion. I hope we shut it down.
One from Ohio, Mr. Gonzalez, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our panel. In a way, I'm sort of encouraged by today's hearings. I think there's more broad agreement than is normal in this committee, at least amongst the panel, the majority of the panel, that we do need clarity. We do need clarity with respect to how we are going to regulate in the space, because we are pushing a lot of the innovation overseas. I hope we get that clarity. Mrs. Parker, I want to start with your testimony. You suggest, to my earlier point, that this uncertain regulatory environment does choke innovation and pushes projects overseas, correct? Thank you. And it forces Americans to do things like use VPNs as a workaround. And I think you rightly highlight that this is a bad outcome for Americans.
That's correct.
Thank you. You also say that regulators are hesitant to get involved when relevant members are, your words, relevant members are hostile to crypto. Subcommittee chairs on this specific committee, they would qualify as relevant. I won't.
They qualify as relevant, but not hostile.
Right. Some potentially. So, assuming regulators are listening, and I didn't want to put you in that box, but you did say it. Listening, I'd encourage them to listen to the full committee and not quote relevant members who say ridiculous things, like people should invest in the California lottery instead of cryptocurrency, and suggest that if it's possible to lose money, that some people are going to make money and others are going to lose money, that whatever that thing is, whatever that instrument is, ipso facto should be banned. And also people who suggest that because there are money launderers and bad people who use cryptocurrencies, and there are, we know that it should be banned. I would like to cite a statistic by Katie Hahn, who broke up the Silk Road scheme a while back. 99.9% of money laundering with fiat currencies goes unprosecuted. 99.9. So, the commentary around whether we should allow cryptocurrencies to exist on AML lines, I would ask, compared to what? Compared to fiat, where 99.9% goes unprosecuted. Another comment is made, well, it's highly volatile. And because it's highly volatile, there is necessarily systemic risk, and we should ban it because it's highly volatile. Here's some bubbles in the crypto space. 2011 went from $1 to $31 down to $2, no systemic risk. 2013, 13 to 266 down to 65. 2015, $65 to 1242 to 200. And then obviously in the last year, we've seen it go from a couple thousand to 60 grand, back down to 30 and bounced up. At any point, Mr. Van Valkenburg, did the federal government have to step in and prop up the cryptocurrency markets or save anybody?
No, by definition, cryptocurrencies are unbacked. We've heard some members question whether that's wise, but something that's not backed doesn't have promises associated with it. And so there aren't promises to be disappointed and someone to be bailed out in that case. It's like gold. How would you bail out the price of gold? Who would you pay? Exactly. And then with your final or my final minute, I'd like to talk to you. There's
There's a comment that, people are going to lose money, and that's definitely true. Can you compare blockchain and cryptocurrencies to the early internet? Maybe use the pets.com and Amazon analogy if you could.
Absolutely. So these are brand new systems that do something amazing. They allow people across the world to coordinate, to perform, and provide a service that previously could have only been performed and provided by a big company. So just like the internet suddenly gave us the ability to all have our own blogs and not necessarily have to rely on the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, the nature of Bitcoin is quite radical. It allows us to rely on ourselves in addition to centralized entities. And the radicalness of that innovation is something that people will get excited about for the right reasons and sometimes overexcited for the wrong reasons.
We've got to keep pace with China. China is close to banning all cryptocurrencies.
And some, no matter how well acquainted, will remain hostile to the idea. Look, I won't spend long on Mr. Sherman's remarks, but China is building the creepiest surveillance tool in history. We should absolutely not emulate them. The whole fact that China is doing that is why we should be embracing decentralized distributed ledger technology that is more secure and does protect privacy. We could actually go further to defending freedom and restoring our Fourth Amendment constitutional protections in the financial sector by embracing the potential of this technology, not by being hostile to it. The third-party doctrine has annihilated the whole concept of privacy. And yes, we absolutely should keep the country safe. Goldstein, you spoke around the same topic. Last month, Tether revealed the breakdown of its reserves. In their disclosure, we learned that nearly 50% of its reserves are held in unspecified commercial paper of unknown quality. I looked at a few constant net asset value funds or liquidity funds held by larger banks to see how their composition compares to Tether's. While these funds are not a part of the crypto market, they are targeted for investors with surplus cash deposits who seek liquidity from their investments. Thus, they serve a similar function to Tether or other stablecoins. What I found when I looked into these liquidity funds was that commercial paper accounted for around 25 to 30% of their underlying reserves in the net asset value funds. Additionally, we know the quality of those commercial paper holdings and it's disclosed. Ms. Sue, based on Tether's disclosure, do you think there should be further disclosure regarding its underlying concerns? Composition?
Yeah, I think that one was the first disclosure ever. And New York Attorney General's office took actions in investigating the case prior to its mandated disclosure as part of the settlement agreement. And some of the argument focused around the earlier promise of full backing and whether the disclosure come out to match that early promise. So.
Yeah, and definitely a relevant piece. It's easy to break the buck, particularly when you hold structured credit with undisclosed quality for the structured credit. So where they're at in the position is really important. It may not actually be a stable coin.
Now, as we've discussed before, these tools, these formations, these charts are for professional use. Don't try doing this at home unless you are a professional. However, let's take a look at a couple of the more prevalent formations that are pretty well visible to the naked eye. Okay, so first and foremost, this is a switch to decaf indicator. You usually see this in two different occasions. One is when somebody tries to start pulling out charts and graphs in the first 3 hours, first 3 days, first 3 weeks of a token or a coin's life cycle. Switch to decaf. Charts for projects that are 3 hours old are utterly ridiculous, and you only show how little you know when you start to show them. You're embarrassing yourself. The other occasion is when you're on the crack addict 1 minute candles and seeing movements go here, and thinking that on the 1 minute candles it actually means something. So When you see this, know it's time for you to switch to decaf. Something very similar to the switch to decaf indicator that we saw a moment ago. You need to always make sure that the information that you're looking at is good. Now we've had to hide some of this for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't want another strike on YouTube. Number two, we're not 100% sure that we're giving you good evidence. In other words, the protruding diamond nipples handles that we're building on this particular chart, it was hard to tell if A, the room was just really, really cold, or B, there was some other kind of stimulation going on at the moment. And since we can't tell, well, then this is just one of those pieces of information that we just have to enjoy for what it is and then move on. This was one of our previous t-shirts. This was the ETH America t-shirt. Now again, whether it was the thermostat in the room or other stimulus that was going on before it was time to chart, I think that we need to just remove this from consideration. However, there are some things that you just need to sit back and appreciate for what they are. So, salute to all you ladies. Now, before we go too in-depth on this next pattern, because again, this is one of these that you do not see that often, but before we go too far in-depth into this, I wanted to cover some really quick, obvious things. Number one, wow. Oh my God. Second thing was when I casually looked, the first thing that jumped out at me was this ankle, and I was going, oh my God, what's going on with this poor girl's ankle? But it's just the knee from behind. And the second thing was that, and I shared with her, my professional medical opinion is that this freckle or mole needed to be looked at in closer detail. Turned out not to be malignant, but she also turned out not to have any tan lines. So there's that. The last thing is, guys, sex on the beach doesn't really work. It's not like in the movies. It's really not. I mean, there's an expression when you live in a beach town that, oh, it's not a beach house unless there's a little bit of sand in the house. Okay, and that's even if you live a couple of miles from the beach. And in this particular situation, there's no blanket action going on. In situations like this, there is some unwanted, unforgiving, and pretty regretful places that this sand will get. So, hey, yo freaking low. But you're probably going to encounter some unwanted and unpleasant friction. But you do you. You do you. Now, the first thing that really pops out after we realize that the ankle is not the ankle of Elephant Man is the Perky Snuggle Pillows counter indicator that we see here. Right here. And we have a pierced left nipple ring divergence that you can't really see from this angle. But other than that, I mean, it is the perfect chart representation of the Wyckoff distribution pattern that we're seeing right now, except with the curved back. And we don't have that V-shaped recovery. We don't have that perfect V-shaped recovery, but we do have an incredibly well-rounded derriere candle forming right here. And then we came right back down here to the mid-peak. Now, opinions vary whether it's time for us to take off or if we're going down to 10,000. So I think that you need to get a better look at this non-freckle birthmark right there and the pierced left nipple indicator to get a better idea on how this one's gonna go. But again, this is one of those formations, and it doesn't even matter if you're losing money. If you see a formation like this, it's time to go all in. All in. Go all in. All in. And this is a segment that is going to grow. I just need to come up with more charting terms and obviously a few more models. So anyway, you guys take care of yourself. Much love to all of you. Sunshine, unicorn, lollipops, rainbows, and all those good things to you and everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Until then, vaya con huevos. Now, as I sit here after editing, I'm not real happy with how this bit came out. Such an incredible model. Beautiful young lady from head to freaking toe. And I don't think that the singer was able to keep up with the song. So, I'm going to come back and do a better job with this incredible talent. So I apologize to this young lady for doing a horrible job. I'll do better next time. I promise. I absolutely promise. So we'll see you in a future video.
I like my women like I like my chicken with a little bit of fat on the end. Not too much, not too little, just enough to make me grin. You ever see a little woman walking down the street? She ain't my type, I need a little more meat. She's skinny, oh, and not my cup of tea. There's some of you that know this song, or some of you don't. The ones that don't are gonna look at the ones that do and read their fucking lips, because we're gonna learn it or we ain't leaving.